is Miss McConnell. I'm here for some story time, and today we are going to finish Sideways Stories from Wayside School. So, oh my goodness, you guys, I'm so excited. This chapter is called Nancy, and here's a picture of Nancy. Nancy had big hands and big feet. He didn't like his name. He thought it was a girl's name. None of the other children in Miss Jewel's class thought Nancy's name was odd. They didn't think of it as a girl's name or as a boy's name. Nancy was just the name of the quiet kid with the big hands and the big feet who sat over there in the corner next to John. Nancy was very quiet and shy. He was ashamed of his name. He had only one friend, a girl who went to class on the 23rd story of Wayside School. They were friends for a good reason. He didn't know her name, and she didn't know his. They just called each other, "Hey, you," or just plain you. Nancy was afraid to ask his friend what her name was because then he might have to tell her his name. He never could figure out why she never asked, but he was happy to just leave well enough alone. One morning, Nancy and his friend were late. When they got to the 23rd story, his friend's teacher was waiting outside. "Hurry up! You're late, Mac," the teacher said. Nancy's face turned red. She didn't move. "Come on, Mac, shake a leg. Get the lead out," said the teacher. "Your name is Mac," said Nancy. Mac was very pretty. She had red hair and freckles. She covered her face and ran into the room. "My name is Nancy," Nancy called after her. Mac stepped back outside. "I was ashamed to tell you my name," she said. "Me too," said Nancy. "Nancy's a girl's name." "Oh, I think it's cute," said Mac. "I like the name Mac," said Nancy. "Mac is a boy's name," said Mac. "My mother has a rich aunt named Nancy," said Nancy. "That's why she gave me the name." "My mother once had a dog named Mac," said Mac. "Hey, do you want to trade?" Nancy asked. "Can we?" asked Mac. "I don't see why not," said Nancy. "Okay," said Mac. They both spun around 100 times in opposite directions until they were so dizzy that they fell over. When they stood up, Mac was Nancy and Nancy was Mac. They said goodbye. Then Mac raced up to Miss Jewel's room. He was no longer shy. "Hi, everybody. My name is Mac," he announced. "I traded names." He held out his big hand. Todd jumped up and shook it. "Hi, Mac," he said. "Glad to meet ya." "How you doing, Mac?" said Ron. "Howdy, Mac," said Terrence. "Nice to see you, Mac," said Phoebe. "You traded names?" asked Jason. Jason didn't like his name either. "That's right, Jason, old boy," said Mac. "Is that allowed?" asked Jason. "Why not?" said Mac. "Hey, anybody want to trade?" Jason called. "I'll trade with you," said Terrence. He didn't like his name either. "Wait, I'll trade with you, Terrence," said Mauricia. Mauricia didn't like her name. "No, he's trading with me," said Jason. "I'll trade with you, Mauricia," said Damien. "No thanks," said Mauricia. "I'll trade with you, Damien," said Miss Jules. "No, I want to be Miss Jules," said Stefan. It turned out that nobody in Miss Jules' class liked his name. The children all spun around in different directions until they got so dizzy that they fell over. And when they stood up again, nobody knew who anybody was. "What are we going to do, Miss Jules?" asked Leslie, who was really Eric Bacon. "My name is not Miss Jules. It's Mauricia," answered Terrence, who was really Jason. "It is not. I'm Mauricia," said Dee Dee, who was really Joe. "You're both wrong," said Mauricia. "I'm Miss Jules." This went on for an hour. At last, they figured out who the real Rondi was. She was missing her 2 front teeth. After they figured out Rondi, they were able to get Allison pretty easily. And then from there, they got DJ, Damien, and Miss Jules. She was the oldest one. Eventually, they figured out who everybody really was. They had some difficulty deciding which Eric was which. And actually, they're still not absolutely sure. Everybody just decided to keep his own name. The children didn't like them, but it made things easier. Mac and Nancy kept their new names, but when they were together, they still called each other, "Hey, you," or just plain you. And this is chapter 29, Stefan. Do you guys recognize who that might be? It has something to do with apples. Could it be Miss Gorf? Stefan had green hair. He had purple ears and a blue face. He wore his sister's pink dancing shoes and green leotards. The leotards matched his hair. He was all dressed up as a goblin for Miss Jewel's Halloween party. But, unfortunately, it wasn't Halloween. "Ha ha ha! You sure look silly," said Jason. Jason was Stefan's best friend. "So do you," said Stefan. "Boy, you're not thinking," said Jenny. "Halloween is on Sunday. Today's only Friday." "You're the one who's not thinking," said Stefan. "Ha! You probably will come to school on Sunday. Miss Jewel said we would have the party today." But none of the other children wore costumes. Only Stefan. "All right, class," said Miss Jules. "It's time for a Halloween party." "See," said Stefan. Miss Jules gave each child a cookie that looked like an orange witch with a black hat. She laughed when she saw Stefan and forgot to give him one. Stefan didn't ask for it. He was afraid she would laugh again. The children finished their cookies in less than 30 seconds. "All right, class," said Miss Jules. "The party's over. We have a lot of work to do." Stefan felt like a fool. The party lasted less than a minute, and he had to spend the rest of the day wearing his goblin suit. "Look, Stefan's wearing his sister's leotards," laughed Dana. "They're green just like his hair," said Eric Bacon. Everybody laughed. Miss Jules began the arithmetic lesson. She wrote on the blackboard, 2 + 2 = 5. "That's wrong!" Joy shouted. Miss Jules tried again. 2 + 2 = 3. That wasn't right either. She added 2 and 2 again and got 43. It was useless. No matter how hard she tried, she could not get 2 + 2 to = 4. "I don't understand it," she said. "They've always equaled 4 before." Suddenly, she screamed. The chalk turned into a squiggling worm. She dropped it on her foot. Then all the lights went out and the blackboard lit up like a movie screen. A woman appeared on the screen. She had long tongue and pointed ears. She stepped off the screen and into the classroom. It was the ghost of Mrs. Gorf. Mrs. Gorf ran her fingernails across the blackboard. "Trick or treat, you rotten kids," she said. "Now I'll get even with every last one of you. Where's Todd?" "Who's that?" asked Miss Jules. "Mrs. Gorf," said Damien. "Who's Mrs. Gorf?" asked Miss Jules. "She was the meanest teacher we ever had," said Rondi. "What happened to her?" asked Miss Jules. "Louis ate her," said Jason. "Well, I'm not going to allow this," said Miss Jules. "Get out of my classroom," she demanded. "It's Halloween, sweet teacher," said Miss Gorf. "Ghosts can go anywhere they like. I've come for a little class reunion." "But it isn't Halloween," said Miss Jules. "Halloween is still 2 days away." "I know," said Miss Gorf, "but Halloween falls on a Sunday this year, so we are celebrating it on the Friday before." Stefan leapt up from his seat. "See, I was right," he said. "Today is the day we celebrate it, the Friday before. Miss Gorf proved it." He ran up to Miss Gorf. "They all laughed at me and made me feel stupid because I was the only one who got dressed up. But they were the ones who were wrong. You and I are right." He put his arms around Miss Gorf and hugged her. Miss Gorf gasped and disappeared. The lights came back on. Miss Jules picked up the piece of chalk from the floor. She wrote on the blackboard, 2 + 2 = 4. "That's good," she said. "When 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4, anything can happen." All the children who had laughed at Stefan now called him a hero. But they did tell him to change out of his silly costume. So at lunch, Stefan went home, washed up and changed. He came back wearing blue jeans and a polo shirt. Of course, his hair was still green. It always was. Chapter 30. This is the last chapter about the Wayside School. And this is about Louis, the yard teacher. And I'm not sure if you guys have noticed this, but the author of this book is Louis Sacker. I wonder if it's the same Louis. Lewis had a red face and a mustache of many colors. He was the yard teacher at Wayside School. A yard teacher is like a recess duty teacher. I don't know if you guys, I think we talked about that earlier, but it's a different way of calling someone who has recess duty, a yard teacher. It was his job to see that the children didn't have too much fun during lunch and recess. And if you haven't already guessed, he is the one who wrote this book. On June 10th, there was a blizzard. Lewis was afraid that the children would have too much fun, so nobody was allowed outside. "Class," said Miss Jules, "after you finish your lunch today, come back up to the classroom. You're not allowed outside." The children all went to the lunchroom. Miss Mush had made tuna surprise. They looked at it and hurried back up the stairs. There was nothing to do. "Now, class," said Miss Jules, "I know that you are all bored, but I have a special surprise for you." "I hope it's better than tuna surprise," said Mauricia. Miss Jules continued, "Lewis is going to come up and entertain us. He will tell us a story. Now, I want you all to be on your best behavior." When Lewis walked in, all the children booed. "Are you going to tell us a story?" asked Bibi. "Yes," said Lewis. "Well, it better be good," Bibi warned. "It better be better than tuna surprise," said Eric Fry. "I thought the tuna surprise was good," said Lewis. "You'd eat dirt if they put enough ketchup on it," said Mac. "Hey, everybody, be quiet," said Todd. "Let him tell the story." "Not too loud, Lewis," said Sherry. "I'm trying to get some sleep." Lewis sat in the middle of the room, and all the children gathered around. Lewis began his story. "This is about a school, very much like this one. But before we get started, there is something you ought to know so that you don't get confused. In this school, every classroom is on the same story." "Which one, the 18th? asked Jenny. "No," said Lewis. "They are all on the ground. The school is only one story high." "Not much of a school," laughed Damien. Lewis continued, "Now, you might think that the children there are strange and silly. That is probably true. However, when I told them stories about you, they thought that you were strange and silly." "Us?" the children answered. "How are we strange?" "I'm normal," said Stephen. "Aren't I?" "As normal as I am," Joe assured him. "The children at that school must be crazy," said Leslie. "Real Lulus," Mauricia agreed. "Tell us about them, Lewis," Bibi demanded. "For one thing," Lewis said, "none of these children have ever been turned into an apple." "That's ridiculous," said Dee Dee. "Everybody's been turned into an apple. It's part of growing up." Lewis continued, "Dead rats don't walk into classrooms wearing raincoats." "What do they wear, tuxedos?" asked Todd. "And girls never try to sell their toes," Lewis added. "Well, no wonder," said Leslie, "at today's prices." Lewis continued, "They don't trade names or read upside down. They can't turn mosquito bites into numbers. They don't count the hairs on their heads. The walls don't laugh, and 2 + 2 always equals 4. "How horrible," said Damien. "That's not the worst of it," said Lewis. "They have never tasted Mauricia-flavored ice cream." A hush fell over the classroom. "Miss Jules, I'm scared," said Allison. "Is there really a school like that?" "Of course not," said Miss Jules. "Lewis is just telling a story." "It was a good story," said Leslie. "I thought it was silly," said Kathy. "I liked it," said Rondi. "It was funny." Miss Jules said, "Lewis, it was a very entertaining story, but we really don't go in for fairy tales here. I'm trying to teach my class the truth." "That's all right," said Lewis. "I have to go down to room 29 now and tell them a story." He started out the door. "Class," said Miss Jules, "let's all thank Lewis for his wonderful story." Everybody booed. Well, I don't know if you guys are booing. I hope you enjoyed it. I think this story is, or I guess these 30 stories, or is it 29, are absolutely hilarious. I remember reading them growing up and just thinking they were awesome. So I hope you guys did too. And if you want to read more about Wayside School, there's actually more books. Wayside School is falling down. and Wayside School gets a little stranger, as if it could get any stranger. So you can read this one again, or read any of those two. Wayside School is Falling Down, or Wayside School Gets a Little Stranger. And the author is Louis Sachar. Here's a picture of him, the author of this book. There's Louis, and he was a yard teacher. And now he loves to write books. So he's written some other very well-known books that are excellent. He's a really funny author. Hope you guys liked it, and send me pictures of any of your favorite characters, or Miss Gorf, or Miss Jules, or the school, or Louis. Or you can send me an email with maybe what was your favorite part about the book, or if you didn't like it at all, you could send me a rating. Was this 2 stars, 3 stars, 5 stars, or 1? Did you absolutely just not like this book? I'd love to hear, and I miss you guys. Bye!